Lupus LA would like to thank our generous sponsors for their support of the Your Story, Our Fight podcast. Mallinckrodt Pharmaceuticals is focused on managing complexity and improving lives. Their work in the autoimmune space is critical to finding new and innovative treatments for lupus. Emerge Business Solutions serves as a personal and professional CFO for clients across a wide spectrum of industries. They handle financial affairs with integrity and transparency. Lupus LA is proud to work hand in hand with Emerge to manage all of its financial needs. Gemini Beauty believes in beauty for a cause, and in their case, the cause is lupus, creating products to specifically address the needs of lupus patients, but with broad appeal across all skin types. The team at Gemini is changing the skincare game for good. Gemini Beauty also donates 10% of their profits to Lupus LA, so you know your purchase is helping lupus patients and their families. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Lupus LA podcast, Your Story, Our Fight. I'm your host, Adam Selkowitz, and again, thanks to all of our sponsors who make this podcast possible. I have a terrific mother-daughter team to talk to today. Valerie Gilkey is a lupus patient and mom of Marcella Lewis, an accomplished dancer, and their story, I think, is not uncommon in the world of lupus and incredibly powerful. So today we're going to talk a lot about how you guys rely on each other and help each other and how that affects managing a lupus case. And Valerie, so tell me, welcome to the podcast to both of you. Sorry, I should have started there. Valerie, tell me sort of when you were diagnosed with lupus and how that came about.
Yes. I was attending high school, James Monroe in the Valley. And I say about 11th grade, I started getting a small bald spot in my head, and I was living with my grandparents. So I didn't really communicate it with them because it didn't really bother me. I just figured it was just, a little bald spot. And then from there, I was doing very well in school. So by 12th grade, I only had 3 classes, and I started working for a law firm in the Valley called Freilich and Green. And so I went to 3 classes, and then I would go to work. And then as I started working, I noticed open sores were starting to accumulate on me. So I didn't understand that at all. So that's when I called my mom, and she came down, and we went to so many different doctors. And by the time we went to maybe the 3rd doctor, I mean, I literally looked like a monster. I mean, they were just everywhere, all of my scalp, all of my face. They were open. Some of them looked like they got infected. I couldn't walk. It was just really bad. Mm. And that's how it kind of all started. And then ultimately we got to UCLA, and they brought me in and hospitalized me. And that's where I was finally diagnosed. And actually, they had said I was probably one of the worst cases they had seen. And this was back in the 80s. Mm-hmm. And to be honest, in the Black community, we didn't really know much about lupus. It wasn't something that, it was more diabetes, high blood, things like that. So
how did that impact you when you actually got the diagnosis? I'm assuming, when I was diagnosed with lupus, I had to look it up. I didn't know what it was. And there was no internet. So, it was even more difficult, but
very difficult. And I'm assuming for all the doctors, I was just really, I was still a child, and I was really so motivated because I was working. I was at this law firm. They loved me. I worked really hard. And when the doctor was like, "Oh, you can't go back to work. I'm taking you off work. You have to go into," and I'm going, "No, I'm too young. I absolutely not." And I tried to go back, and I went in the hospital immediately afterwards for like a couple of more months, and I was just scared at that point. I thought my life was over with. I was just so young. I just didn't understand. And I thought I was going to look the way that I looked, because by then my hair was leaving me.
And how long? I know hair loss, and that was some really difficult moments for you.
Very difficult. For a woman, that's our crown. So when the hair loss came, I had sores. So putting on wigs couldn't really work, So
Mm-hmm.
it was, yeah, I ended up being in the house a lot,
Mm-hmm. And so at what point were you able to get some treatment that helped you reclaim some of your normalcy in your life?
After I was released from UCLA, I was, obviously put on very high doses of prednisone. I think like 60 a day.
Mm-hmm.
I believe Plaquenil. I can't even remember them all back then. I know it's a very, very high doses of prednisone for a very, very long time. I was eventually sent to a doctor, Dr. McCord. I still remember
Mm-hmm.
him. And next thing you know, my hips are hurting severely, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and didn't understand that, still having outbreaks here and there. I'm starting to learn a little bit about lupus, not going to the sun, this, that, all the different things, my diet. And, obviously when they took the x-ray, it looked like somebody took a bite out of my part of the bone right here in the hip.
Uh-huh.
And he looked at the other one. He said, yeah, double hip replacement is going to be coming. But by then I found out I was pregnant.
Okay. So this is how many years between the diagnosis and the time you're pregnant and possibly needing a double hip transplant?
So from I was 17 to 27.
So over 10 years.
Yes.
And were you able to finish high school or do any work in those 10 years?
Yes. So I did finish high school, graduated with honors. Like I said, I did start working at Fralick Green. Um, from Fralick Green, all the skills that I learned, one of the attorneys got his own office. And because they knew my struggle, he went ahead and let me work there. And he just kind of worked with me.
Uh-huh.
And so I was able to work part time and still keep up those skills because,
Okay.
I've always loved business. And I
Yeah.
did a little school, because they have programs if you're disabled if you go to school. So
Yep.
I took advantage of that. Yeah.
So then you get pregnant. And
Yes.
so what goes through your mind from a lupus perspective during your pregnancy?
Well, they said I shouldn't go. No, this is pretty much what they said. And I said, yes.
Mm-hmm.
I said, I'm going to go for it. Absolutely. I, you know, I was, it was just something I was just determined to do. I mean, I don't know where the strength came from, but I fought against all the no's and I just said, let it happen. They said, well, we have to take you off of, I was on, it was that one medicine. I think it's amoxicillin.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was the name of it. It had a weird smell to it. I still can smell that smell.
Me too.
Yeah. And, they said, we got to take you off everything and put you on high risk. And I said, okay. And I ended up having a good pregnancy. My body went into remission, and of course I was walking like a cripple for a
Right.
while. I was really, really kind of, because I needed double hip replacement.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't want to do all of that then. And then the pregnancy went fine. Of course, I couldn't have natural childbirth because they couldn't open my,
Right.
legs. So I had a C-section. Then right after I had her, I was able to have my double hip replacement.
That's a lot for a person to handle. Marcella, how does hearing your mom's story, I'm sure you've talked about it and heard it before, but how does sort of hearing it in this format make you feel?
I feel, I think I've heard it before, of course, but I also feel like, I think in this format where you hear somebody talk to somebody else about it, there's another level of vulnerability and openness that happens, because I think when I've heard the story before, there's a level of detachment from it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that just comes from protection and just also not wanting me to worry or feel bad. And I know that that's just her own protection. So that's just a level of detachment to it. And I'm very aware of her strength. And I still to this day don't understand how it was possible. And I also feel like it's one of those things where, I feel like God was very much present in her life and in mine. And the determination to have me regardless is extremely, I think it's just inspiring and it's really powerful. And I think it's one of those moments where when everyone's telling you scientifically, like this can't happen, but the faith that she had is so inspiring. And I think also knowing too that during the pregnancy that the lupus went into remission, like if any, like she got better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's so it's just so powerful. And it tells you a lot about the human spirit, the power of a woman's body, the resilience of a woman's body, and just the act of even the way that another spirit can possibly heal another person.
Mm-hmm.
And even her body's ability to just know that it had to bring this life forward. So it was like, this lupus has to go away for right now. Like I think it's really, the only word I can really think of is powerful at the moment, because even when I tell the story to other people, I think everyone's just kind of like blown away for sure.
Yeah, no. And I think it's very interesting because it's not uncommon for a pregnancy to alter a lupus patient's trajectory. And I think there's something to be studied there. I'm sure there are studying it, but it's, and it's the opposite too. Sometimes you're in remission and then a pregnancy can cause lupus or not cause it, but activate the lupus. And a lot of people are diagnosed with lupus just after childbirth. So, there's a lot there. And I think spiritually and emotionally and beyond just the physical science of it, there's a lot there to be unpacked. And so early when Marcella was a baby, how was it sort of caring for her and managing the lupus at the same time? When you were first a brand new mom.
Very hard. I was a single parent. I did have my mom to support, but obviously I had the double hip, and so she was with my mom. And actually, right after I had her, right after I had her, I was about to leave the hospital and I got really sick, and we had to stay an extra 5 days. So she was downstairs. I said that I didn't want her to go home. I want to go home with her. Mm-hmm. So she stayed downstairs, and they would walk me down there to see her for about a good 5 or 10 days. I forgot what happened. My body just probably finally gave out.
Yeah, shut down. Yeah.
Yes. So anyway, we got home, and I just remember, and I said, I did it, now what, and I just knew just to love on her, And it was just me and her, and feeding her. Obviously, I couldn't breastfeed, but she was a good baby. She was my pride and joy. So all that depression kind of went away,
Yeah.
And I said, I'm gonna live vicariously through her, whatever she does.
Well, all right, so
So
we're going to come back. I'm going to take a quick break, and then I want
okay.
to talk about kind of the bond you guys formed, when you were a kid, Marcella, and how you now have lived vicariously through her life, and I think that's a really exciting part of the story. So we'll be right back after this break.
Lupus LA's fellowship program is an essential part of ensuring the training of future rheumatologists. The nation is experiencing a serious shortage of pediatric rheumatologists. Today, there are approximately 300,000 children diagnosed with rheumatic conditions in the United States, but only about 250 practicing pediatric rheumatologists to meet this tremendous need. Call 310-657-5667 or visit our website at lupusla.org to support the efforts of Lupus LA.
Welcome back to the Lupus LA podcast, Your Story, Our Fight. We're talking to Valerie Gilkey and her daughter, Marcella Lewis. And we are now going to talk about your childhood, Marcella. So tell me kind of, what are your earliest memories of knowing that your mom had lupus or was sick, or, I don't know what she told you or what she didn't tell you, but, when you were a kid, what was that experience like?
Yeah, it's so interesting, which is also a part of the incredible strength and the protection of a mother, is I have very little memory of her actually being sick. So I think a lot of that has to do with the amount of love that was poured into me. And I also feel like there was a level of my mom just trying to protect me from worrying, especially because I was young. So I had a lot of family around me, and I knew there's memories. I remember the double hip replacement. I remember the knee.
Osteolymitis. I had osteolymitis, and it heals open.
Yeah,
It stays
I've heard
open,
of that.
and so I had the machine in the room, and she used to be there watching while the nurses coming in and cleaning it out, and
it didn't freak me out.
And it never freaked her out.
Yeah.
And she would just be looking. I'm like, how do I explain this? And I just kind of gave her everything she wanted.
Yeah.
I don't know. And, yeah.
I feel like, I think there was a level of just, I would say just protection. Like, you didn't really express or show, like, and even it's interesting because there was times where I remember even growing up and going to dance class as a child. One of my teachers told me, not until later on in life, that there was times where, and I think you told me this too, like my mom had to sit in the car, and she'll drop me off, but she had to sit in the car and just to rest, or she'll have, what is the thing?
Catheter.
She'll have a catheter under her shirt. So I didn't know she had a catheter attached to her. So it was just always kind of hidden. And so I grew up, I would say generally, like, not really knowing how sick she was. And I didn't know that until way later on in life. So, and like she said, there was a lot of just her trying to give me, all of the things that she didn't have growing up. And that was basically a lot of love, a lot of support, and I think so it's that, and then also just not wanting me to worry, because I was young, and I know she didn't want to put that weight on me as a child and as an inspiring dancer. So yeah, as somewhat, I would just say she kept it hidden, and she kept it hidden very, very well. Very well.
What did you think about my hair loss? I guess I explained it to you, but that's when wigs came in and I was kind of doing my little wig thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I will say I also had a lot going on. I will say that's another part of it too, is that I was always kept really busy.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't necessarily have time to be paying attention to those things. My mom kept me in dance class. I was always doing an activity. I was performing. I was really, she was really invested in keeping me and supporting me in all of my endeavors and all the things I wanted to do as an artist.
And I think it's also interesting that you chose dance, in the sense, that your mom has obviously trouble moving around, and the hips and the knee and all of that. And then you naturally go towards a profession or an activity that is so physical and so much about your legs and so much, and in hearing your mom say she wants to live vicariously through you, it seems, I don't know, Valerie, maybe you just forced her. Maybe you just said, I want to dance, so you're going to dance, right? I don't know.
Yeah. No, it's funny because I think my mom was just wanted to try out different things. So the first thing she just decided to try was, I'll just put her in dance class. Mm-hmm. And it just ended up being the right choice. It just, because I know like a lot of people, they'll try a lot of little different things with the kids and what sticks. And her first try was dance. And that was the one. It ended up being the one, and I stuck with it. I stayed in it, and I got really good really fast. So I was really ahead of my time at my
age group. Yeah.
In my age group. So that meant that I was doing it a lot. So that I was dancing a lot. I was being hired for some professional gigs at a really young age. I was performing a lot. So I was actually really busy. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting too. And I think what's also really beautiful about the story, or not even a story, but our life, is that I know that part of my expression, my movement expression, is what keeps her going. It keeps her, and coming to see me perform and coming to see me in dance class, like ignites a deep level of joy for her. And I think from what my mom has told me, it's like part of what helps her stay alive and stay moving and stay pumping is getting to see me express myself in dance.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I didn't miss one. I took her to every single class. I stayed at every single class. When the doors started opening and she started acting, like we would go somewhere, she'll do a musical, someone would come up, and she got into what was the name of that acting studio? Osborne Agency. The lady walked up to us. She got in there right away. Now we're going on acting auditions. So it was a lot. And I even think back, how was I doing it? And I was doing it by just taking my medicine and just going full force ahead. I was in a lot of pain. I was depressed and all that. And I hit a lot. I did. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, but on the other hand, when she did get all these wonderful things happening for her, that just kind of took it away. So I guess kind of like when I say live vicariously, my joy was coming from her.
And how do you think that impacted your health?
The
joy part,
mentally, it made it much better. Because obviously I went through a pretty bad depression. I still do. Went through a pretty bad depression. So every time something great happened, I felt good about it. I accomplished, because I didn't expect to be doing all of that. When I see mothers who, 2 arms, 2 legs, could do everything, and their child isn't doing, and I'm trying to encourage them. And I'm like, wait a minute, this must be the other way around,
Right.
And
Right.
so, yeah.
Yeah, I think
How much pressure does that put on you, Marcella? Or do you feel that? Do you feel pressure at all?
Well, I will answer that, but I also wanted to add to what she was saying. It's interesting. I think it was interesting to watch, like, to grow up and to have such an awareness of her just being active in my life, in my performance life, and being there
Backstage mom.
while knowing that there were so many other of my peers who didn't have that support at all.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom was like, would like limp to see me perform,
Mm-hmm.
and it was just so, I'm just so grateful for that, because I really started to feel that I started to have so much gratitude when I would hear my peers just say, I wish my mom was here. I wish, I had family here, whatever. Or I had to come here just because they were either uninterested or unsupportive just because.
Right. Sure.
And can I mention, I remember when you were in college and she called me crying one time. And she just said, Mom, I just want to thank you for just being there. I didn't know, it just came from nowhere. I just want to thank you for just being there and this. And I was like, sure, sweetheart, of course. But I guess being around other kids after she got older and away from
That's a nice phone call to get.
That was a nice,
right?
I remember that.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So tell me about the pressure. I want to go back to that question.
Yes. So I definitely feel, I think that was something that I had to deal with as I got older. And I feel like I talked to you about it a couple of times. But that was something I definitely started to feel a weight to be the source of her happiness, which was a lot of weight. And I think still can be, because I think just in the way how our past has moved, and how I know that there's a lot of leaning on me to be a source of joy, that I think that can be really challenging. And I think that also, and even the joy that she has when I dance. There was a moment where I might have felt pressure to always dance. And there's something else I wanted to say.
But you did like dancing, though, right?
Yeah.
Oh.
Of course. But
well, it's got to be motivational at the same time too, right? I mean,
yeah, it's, I had something, it's, if it comes back, it'll come back. But there's a level of knowing. And I think on a general scale, it's good to also know that something that I love to do can bring somebody else joy. I think that's really just a dream come true also, and just in general.
And so, Valerie, tell me, how proud of Marcella are you, that she's had so much success, and, her career is taken off, and, from that little, I have a 6-year-old ballerina at the moment, and gymnast, and, and I can see that path, and I can imagine what it's like to see, the success that Marcella's had.
Well, so you have an idea, even at that age when they're on stage doing their thing,
Oh yeah.
All the parents are just, very, very excited at a very young age. And like I said, it happened pretty fast right away for her. All these doors opening and these professional dance companies wanting her at 13 and flying her around the world. And I'm just like, huh, what? Of course, I went with her. And even her school supported her when she ended up going to, and she was good in school too. When she went to Willows, they, would support her and send her to a summer program. And then she'll end up getting a scholarship to go the next next year or something like that. So she just kept doing her thing. She loved it. She was great at it. She's great at it. So as the doors opened, I said, okay, now I got to start flying. And then when she moved away, I went through a huge depression when college. She went to New York. So I was like, good night, or can you call me every day? I thought we supposed to talk every day. Are they supposed to, I didn't know. So
Marcella did not think that to be, did not think that was the case.
Yeah. I'm thinking she's supposed to call every day and say goodnight every day. And so I was like, why didn't she, so I had to learn that and ultimately that she'll be fine. And she was, and then, now she's back. And then of course she'll be moving out soon. We were just talking about it last night. I should get a puppy,
There you go. A dancing puppy. You need a dancing puppy.
Yeah. And I think still by the time I had left for college, I still didn't quite have an awareness of how sick she had been in the past or how sick she was. I still at that point didn't know. So I was still, I understood, but I didn't see it visually. So it's different to have information about an understanding about lupus and like, oh, okay, so this is what happens. I've never seen that on my mom though. So I think I still at that point it was there, but also I think as time has progressed and after I graduated college and I stayed in New York and things like that, I felt like there was a point where I also was trying to encourage her to find things that she likes to do, and find other activities outside of me, and just kind of going back to herself. And I think a lot of moms have a hard time with that because they pour so much into the child and their whole world and whole life becomes their child. So when I went away, I don't think she had a clutch.
Life.
Yeah. Or like even just like something to lean on. So I think, but as time has gone on,
you're in a writing group, right, Valerie?
She's so talented. Like she's so creative. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, that's where I get it from. Like this is, and it's really cool to see just how she's like a writer and she's an incredible writer and she's really smart and so it's really fun to watch her explore and see all these things that she's really, really good at.
I love it. Yeah. I love it. I think the story is sort of still being told and it's ongoing, but it's coming full circle. And, I think the metaphor of dance is so powerful in your story. And I just want to thank you both for taking the time to do this podcast. I want you both to keep dancing and in your own way. And we really appreciate you sharing it with us.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you, Adam.
Thank you, Adam.
On behalf of the entire team at Lupus LA, we thank you for joining the Your Story, Our Fight podcast. Please tune in, spread the word, and come back for more inspiring lupus stories. I'm your host, Adam Selkowitz, wishing you good health, and to always remember, your story is our fight.